Welcome to episode of Wire to Wire Sports Podcast. Cottrell is a little slow on the ones and twos tonight, but that's all right. We still love him. I am your handsome host, Gene Walzak, and I am here to tell you that we have a phenomenal show for you tonight. The Wire to Wire NFL genius in the upper left corner. I got Kent State's own, Cleveland's own, College Cottrell.
What's going on?
I need an apology, Cottrell. You don't make mistakes like that often, but let's hear it.
I sincerely apologize, everybody.
It's sincere. It's sincere. So after the sincere apology about Cottrell, we got Uncle Shally, Scholastic Shally, going into the college football season. Scholastic Shally's going nuts. What's up, Bill? Super energetic already. Look at him.
Always. I pace myself. I can't come out of the gates too hot. Always. I pace myself.
Well, I got a feedback, so I sincerely apologize because I was sharing the show. But we got a lot to get into tonight. We got NCAA Big 12 breakdown. We got NFL tight ends list. We're going to talk about the UFC and boxing cards. But the first and I think most important thing that happened the last few days in the sports world is the Major League Baseball trade deadline. I felt like, now see, this is where I feel like we're going to get our paths crossed a little bit. So we might come out a little hot and Shally might not be pacing himself very quickly when we go over this. But winners and losers of the trade deadline. And I really want to start with you, Shally, because you're the baseball guy. Obscure Sport Network. I'm kidding. Baseball's not obscure. But what did you think, winners and losers of the MLB trade deadline? I have clear winners, clear losers, and I am going to snap on you.
The two clear winners, that are I don't think are very debatable would be the Astros and obviously the Rangers. Astros got just fresh off his World Series win with the team last year, signed a big free agent deal with the Mets. Mets imploded like the Mets do. They traded him right back. Houston got him for pretty cheap, too. Nothing prospect-wise, and New York's still picking up a huge chunk of his contract. And they're going to pair him at the top of that rotation now with Framber Valdez, who threw into a hitter yesterday. We've all talked about how good that guy is on the show numerous times. And then you got the Rangers, who kind of went all in to make the playoffs this year. They lost Jacob deGrom, went out and got Max Scherzer from that same Mets team that blew it up, and they got Jordan Montgomery as well. So they're looking to strengthen their rotation. And really try to hold on to that division lead, or at least make sure they stay in the wild card contention to get in the playoffs. I think they're the top two. I like the Orioles move more than some people do. I'm a big Jack Flaherty guy. I think him going to a pennant race. He's pitched really well the last month and a half. I think that helps them tremendously. I think that helps them stay on top of the standings in the AL East. So I like that move as well.
Okay, so who are your losers?
Losers. Sorry, Cottrell. Got to go with Cleveland as one. Didn't really bring anybody in and traded I thought was a piece that they would have liked to hold on to coming down the stretch. You can never have enough starting pitching. I was a little confused by the Aaron Savali trade, but I was a little disappointed in the Phillies too, if I have to be honest. I know we're not catching the Atlanta Braves. Obviously, I don't think anybody is in the NL, but I don't dislike the Michael Lorenzen move. I just thought maybe they were going to be on something else, but maybe that was wishful thinking. But in my eyes, those are the two that stick out to me.
So why I do agree with you that the Verlander trade only sent two prospects, neither were a pitching prospect. I do agree with you that the Houston Astros got a good deal, especially because Steve Cohen is willing to eat a lot of the money. I think that the Mets are one of the biggest winners of this trade deadline. They're out of it, right? The Mets are not doing well, and they got Max Scherzer and Justin Verlander off the books. Now, they're still paying a lot of their salary this year, which is accurate. let me explain to you why I really love what the Mets did. When the Mets traded Max Scherzer, they got two top 50 prospects in all of baseball and a third prospect that's in the top 100, including Ronald Acuna Jr.'s brother. Kid's a stud. The reason they got that prospect is because Steve Cohen, being the great owner that he is, was willing to eat Max Scherzer's money so Texas could basically get him for free. I thought that was a genius move from a team that's out of it. Now, let me just be clear. The Mets are Metting, right? They're doing exactly what the Mets do every season outside of, I don't know, the 82, 81 when they last won the World Series. But I love, if you're going to be sellers at the trade deadline, I love that they sold 2 expensive pitchers and they picked up prospects, legitimate prospects. Now, Justin Verlander, I don't think you could have paid someone to take that contract on. I really don't. He's had a couple good starts recently, but he's old as dirt. Max Scherzer's looked nothing like the Max Scherzer of old. I think that they got rid of 2 old dogs in the building and retooled their farm system and in a season when they're not going to win. If you don't think the Mets are going to go out there and spend a ton of money to try to bring in top free agents this offseason, you're not paying attention. I think they're a winner.
That's where you're wrong, actually. That's
not.
Yeah, I was going to say their
are.
GM basically came out and said that they're retooling and that the team's not going to be competitive next year.
They've come out and publicly announced that's one of the reasons why Scherzer greenlit the trade to get out, because they said they have no intention whatsoever of spending a lot of money next year for 2024. They are retooling for 2025. That's public knowledge. That came out yesterday. That's one of the reasons he said, okay, like I don't want to be here then. Like I'll greenlight the trade, you can trade me. Like that's why it's even more bewildering for Steve Cohen, who wants to spend all this money and start buying World Series. He spent a bunch of money for teams for his 2 top pitchers to go to other teams, and he's not spending money next year. They're retooling for 2025, and on top of that, you have Alonso coming up for a contract next year. I don't know if you re-sign him now. I mean, I don't know if he wants to be part of a rebuild. So it's very interesting what they're doing right now.
They're talking about a 1-year rebuild. They're talking about retooling for 2025, just conceding 2024. I still think they go out and spend a lot of money. Steve Cohen's proven that.
They're not, dude. Like this isn't like I don't want like we're like arguing about it. Like they've already confirmed what Scherzer said, saying they are not spending money next year. And
I'll believe that when I see it with Steve Cohen, because I don't care what the reports say. I watched the fact that he ate a lot of that money on both those contracts to bring in prospects. So yeah, listen. If you don't believe that there'll be players to try to trade for top talent or sign top talent, you're not paying attention to Steve Cohen. Steve Cohen will spend money. If that team starts off out the gate in contention, he will buy talent. That's what he's done.
In contention, I think that's a big like if. But I like what you said though, Gene. I think Steve Cohen now is realizing that he has to build the team the right way, and you do that by getting your prospects. Clearly, these splashes that the Mets have tried to get haven't worked out for him. Frankie Lindor, while he was in Cleveland, was a top 5 shortstop in baseball. He went there, really fell off the face of the earth. Javi Baez the year before. Now you brought in Verlander, Scherzer. All these things aren't working out for you, and so now you're trying to build it how a team really should be built. Now I will agree with you. I do think that if those young kids can get it rolling, I do think earlier on in the year or even at the deadline, Cohen will make a move and not be afraid to spend money or take on contracts and things like that. But I mean, I think the Mets realize that, he spent all this money and he has absolutely nothing to show for it, not even a playoff berth this season. And so, he's not going to do it again next year unless the team is in the right spot.
My biggest loser of the entire trade deadline is the Angels. I cannot believe. Listen, say what you want. The Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim, you got to be kidding me right now. Trout's dead. He's done. Stop lying to yourself. Guys, I've been telling you for 2 years. His back is a problem. He's done. You got Shohei Ohtani.
He's not even out with a hurt back.
He's had a hurt back for a year and a half at this point.
He hurt
his wrist is hurt now, and his back's been hurt for a year and a half.
Okay, so it's not his back now. That's all I'm saying. He's on the DL with a hurt wrist, not a back.
Oh, okay, and you have one of the top players in all of baseball, in Shohei Ohtani, who's leaving you this offseason. He's gone, and you did nothing. You didn't get anything back for him. You could have brought in one of the biggest hauls in baseball history for a rental, and he's gone. He's done. They literally brought in, they gave away more prospects. The Angels are going to be the worst team in baseball in 2 years. The worst team in baseball. They have the worst contracts, and they have Shohei about to leave and Mike Trout on the DL again this year. And Rendon been on the DL for the entire stint that he's been in Los Angeles. It's a joke. Los Angeles is a joke.
So, while, I mean, of course, you would have loved to see the Angels get something for Ohtani. Obviously, you can't let him walk for nothing. So I'm with you there. I don't even think they make the playoffs at this point, to be honest. So I think them having dreams of, making one last push for Ohtani and, ultimately just showing the fan base that, hey, we're trying to do what we can. It's commendable, but it's also stupid. For me, I would say my biggest winner, of course, I'd go with Houston. I think them being where they're at now, they saw the Rangers go out there and get Scherzer, and they said, let's go, get back to the old well. Let's get Verlander back on the staff. And then, of course, Framber no hits the Guardians. But I just think that's clearly a match made in heaven. You get some veteran pitching there in the same division. For me, though, I'd say the biggest losers would be the New York Yankees. I was surprised they didn't go out there and make more moves or make, just more of a splash in free agency, especially considering their last place in the division right now. That's not typical for a Yankees team who, that franchise isn't afraid to spend money either. So even if they did have to eat contracts and things like that, I was very surprised for the most part, they were pretty quiet, knowing, where they're at right now, Judge is back too. And, they didn't try to make a move to bolster that team. And Shiley, just your comment earlier about the Guardians, they are losers as well, but not because they traded Cifali. I mean, they brought back Noah Syndergaard. So, I mean, you just throw an extra piece in that rotation anyway. So I don't think you lose too much there. But they didn't go out there and get any hitting. And clearly, after the performance last night, hitting's been the problem with the Guardians all season. So I do agree Guardians are losers as well, but not because of losing Cifali.
The Yankees thing isn't surprising me, and I'll tell you why. It's a reality that nobody that's a fan of the Yankees wants to admit. Anybody that's worth a damn on that team, they're not going to trade. And all these other pieces that they think they could get rid of and all these inflated contracts nobody wants. So the only way they were getting people was to give up good prospects. I know they were in on Dylan Cease. The asking price for him was through the roof. And the Yankees, I think the Yankees at some point have to look in the mirror and realize what they are. Again, we've said it for 3 years running now. They simply don't have enough pitching. They have Garrett Cole and then a bunch of bums. It's not going to get it done in that division. It's just not going to happen. And then you factor on top of that this year with the Orioles being surprising and a year ahead of schedule where everybody thought they were going to be. That team needs a major overhaul. You need to keep Judge, and you need to get rid of damn near everybody else on that roster. That's going to take a lot of time. There's a lot of guys that are making a lot of money on that team that are nowhere near performing to the level of their contracts. The Yankee situation going into the offseason is going to be very interesting. I know not all the Yankees fans are going to start screaming Shohei, blah, blah, blah. It's fine. Shohei's not going to save that team. He won't. He'll make them a little bit better, but with the rest of the holes you have in that roster, it's not a playoff team. Because Baltimore is going to be even better next year. The Blue Jays will still be there. Tampa Bay will start the year healthy with their rotation. They'll be just as good. They'll have Glass now back to full strength. A full year removed from Tommy John. That team's not going anywhere. The Yankees need a lot of help and a lot of work, and it's a lot. And everybody but the Yankee delusional fans will admit that.
What do you think about the Phillies bringing in Rodolfo? They sent Bailey Falter, who's nothing. Castro's only 24 years old. You listen to the Phillies organization, they think Rodolfo can be an everyday player. Not for them. They think he'll definitely be a transition player, but they're very happy with that trade trade deadline move with the Pirates.
Yeah, I mean, you have to look at it this way. Bailey Falter was not going to factor into this rotation anywhere in the near future.
Especially adding Michael Lorenzen. He's definitely not touching the field anymore.
Correct. You have Michael Lorenzen here. You're obviously not going to have Painter next year like you thought, but you're probably going to have Abel. You still have Wheeler. You still have Suarez. He just wasn't going to. He just had nowhere to go here. So I mean, you do the kid a solid. You trade him. You bring in somebody like you said that maybe helps you in the short term. Probably doesn't factor into your long term plans, but he's a transition player that you could probably trade down the road for another piece for something else. Maybe next year in the offseason, kind of like they did with Pache, who was actually playing well here until he got hurt. So I
think it's a good move because you're replacing Josh Harrison, who was getting innings played. He was getting games and not doing absolutely anything. So you might get something out of that utility infielder.
Correct. In the short term, you might. And if you do, great. If not, it doesn't hurt you. You gave up something. You gave up somebody who was not factoring into your playoff run or anything like that. So the Lorenzen trade I actually like, and I'll tell you why. I'm not a huge fan of 6-man rotations, but that being said, I think anybody that watched the World Series last year could tell that Aaron Nola and Zach Wheeler were just out of gas, and that I think factors in, gives them all an extra off day in between every start, and it allows them to be a little bit more fresh for the long run. So I'm not against it at all. I kind of like it. He's pitched very well for a really bad team in the Central, sub-4 ERA. I think he steals us a couple wins down the stretch, and we didn't really give up anything to get him. So I'm okay with it. I think it's a smart move by Dave. I know he was in on, the rumors are anyway, that he was making phone calls trying to pull off something big, but apparently this offseason, I think you saw it, minus Max and Verlander, and I think they were unique situations. Anybody who was young and still had a bunch of team control left on their contracts, the asking prices were through the roof this year. So
you don't think they'll move Chris Sanchez to the bullpen?
No, I mean, they pretty much said that they're going to go with a 6-man until at least the next off day.
Yeah.
Once they get to that, then I think they might make the decision. I don't know if it's Sanchez though, man. I mean, the kid's pitched lights out his last 4 starts. If he keeps throwing like that, and he's a lefty, because we're already right-hand dominant in our rotation as it is, I don't know if he's the odd man out. I don't know.
I think Sanchez is the odd man out. You're not. Taijuan Walker's pitching too well. Ranger Suarez has too good of stuff, and Aaron Nola and Zach Wheeler have too much invested in them.
I mean, Wheeler, yes. I mean, I don't know if you could say that with Nola. I mean,
but you're not going to sit Aaron Nola down the stretch.
The goal is to make the playoffs, man. If one guy's going out and giving you 6-7 innings and 1 earned, 2 earned runs every game, and the other guy's giving you 5-6 innings and 5 earned runs, you got to pitch the guy that's going to give you a chance to win. I mean, they're not obligated to Aaron Nola past this season, and I get it. And I don't disagree with you to some aspect. He's been the one here forever. I get it, but is it worth not making the playoffs over? The answer to that is no.
Okay. Katron, any thoughts on the trade deadline? Anything you want to add?
I mean, I think the one player that I was kind of surprised that you didn't see get moved was Tim Anderson Jr. I thought that Tim Anderson being a piece on that White Sox team, he's not going to be with the team next year anyway. And them being so far out of it, I thought there would be a team that tries to get that caliber player into their lineup. Now, I don't know if it was a lack of interest or if it was just, Tim Anderson was like, hey, I want to just ride it out and go about it that way. But I was definitely expecting to see more White Sox, Tim Anderson specifically, but I was expecting to see more White Sox get shipped this deadline.
So I give you a little tidbit on that one. So what happened with Tim Anderson was originally he said if you could trade me into a contender, he would go. Chicago came out early today and said everybody was tradable, including Dylan Cease minus Robert. They said they weren't trading him. They wanted the moon and then some for Dylan Cease, which I understand because he's got 2 full years left on his contract, and then a year arbitration. So you're getting him for 3 years. They got greedy with Toronto is what I've read a couple places. When Bo Bichette went down, there was obviously an immediate need for a shortstop, and apparently they tried to bend Toronto over the barrel because Toronto called about Tim Anderson. That backfired in their face. They went and got Paul DeJong from St. Louis, which I think is actually a very smart move. It's a very good placeholder move till Bo's back and healthy. That's why Tim Anderson didn't get moved. I think at the end of the day, he'll be happy to just play out his contract. He's been very loyal to that organization. I think you'll see him sign somewhere else next year. But I think there was probably in the morning, I think there was a good chance he got moved, and then Chicago got greedy and Toronto just moved on and made the deal that made sense for them.
A couple comments I want to read from the Sports Empire Network chat because John Suggs says Mets are paying $130 million for players not even on the team. They are a joke. He also says, if Matt Olson passes Ohtani in home runs, do we consider him for MVP because he has more RBIs and he's only 2 home runs behind Ohtani, and the Braves will make the playoffs, Angels won't? I think that Acuna is already won the MVP for the National League.
It doesn't really matter because they're not competing against each other.
He's not. He's just saying, like, comparatively speaking, between the two players.
No, because I agree with you. I don't think he's even the best player on his team. Acuna's
batting .335. Like, that is so absurd for what he's doing.
He has 25 home runs. He's got 50 stolen bases. He's the first guy to do that since 2007. He's having a freak year. He's going to be on the best team that almost automatically leads to MVP stuff. So he's been the best player consistently this year. I'd be shocked if it's not Ronald Acuna Jr. if he stays healthy the rest of the year.
Matt Olson has a ton of power numbers, though. 37 home runs, 91 RBIs. He leads Major League Baseball in RBIs. But Ronald Acuna Jr. is 141 hits. He's number 3 in Major League Baseball behind only Luis Arraez, who's, by the way, that guy does not get out. He's batting .381.
And it's funny to say that he's fallen off a little bit.
Yep.
So he didn't fall first to Phillies. I'll tell you that. The guy was on base every friggin' at bat.
No, he did not.
Appreciate it. Oh. All right. Any final trade deadline comments? Because I want to get in some of these fights.
No, I think overall it was a good trade deadline. I think some of the big names we expected to move didn't.
Uneventful.
Uneventful is probably a good word for it. I think you'll see a lot of crazy stuff at the winter meetings this year, though. I think to Gene's point about the Angels, I think they have to try to free up money to keep Ohtani. I think there's one easy way to do that, and I think it comes to fruition this year. They can't. If Ohtani gets what everybody thinks he's getting, they can't be damn near $1 billion invested into 2 players. It's just not going to happen. So I'll be curious to see what happens with Trout in the offseason, obviously with who Ohtani ends up playing for. And then I think there's other big pieces that can move in the winter. So one good thing about baseball that I do like, they do have that period in the winter, in the winter meetings, and stuff always comes out of it and trades do happen. So or you get leaked free agency signings. So that is the one thing it's not really like an official free agency beginning. So I do like that about baseball, but see how everybody plays down the stretch now. Everybody's set and locked in, so it'll be now you just sit back and enjoy baseball.
Yeah, but you still do have your fake trade deadline that can still take place.
You have waivers, but the odds of somebody
clearing waivers.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Last one I could think of was Donaldson.
And
he was late.
yeah.
This was like 5 years. Donaldson 5 years ago was still playable.
Yeah, he still was. That wasn't prime Donaldson still, and he's a jerk off. So a lot of teams don't want to bring him in the locker room. He's a piece of shit. I can't stand him.
We got to get into these fights, man. Trade deadline. We'll talk about baseball more. These fights. So let's talk about the boxing match first. Terrence Crawford brutalized Errol Spence in that match. The first round was competitive, and I wouldn't even concede that to Spence. Everybody else conceded that to Spence. I thought it was close, right? Like
it was close.
You could have given it to Spence. You could have given it to Crawford. The rest of the fight. What?
2 judges gave it to Spence. The other one gave it to Crawford.
The rest of the fight was an absolute masterclass. I've not seen a masterclass like that since the likes of Mayweather, Gotti. There's so many fights you could look at. Big fights that just got hyped up that were supposed to be very close fights. This is one of the biggest hyped fights of all time, and Terrence Crawford made Errol Spence look like he was a sparring partner. It was brutal.
I think what's not upsetting, but kind of sad to me is like how far boxing has fallen. Because you mentioned Mayweather, like still like in his prime, and then you go back to like Gotti or Trinidad and De La Hoya and all those guys. Like boxing was can't miss back then. If there was a fight of this magnitude back in the late 90s, early 2000s, like you'd be over somebody's house with like 15 friends, like watching something like that. There's so many people I talked to that were like, "Oh, that's this weekend." Like they had no idea. And like you said, if you're going skill wise and pound for pound rankings, it was the best fight you could make on paper. And Terrence Crawford just came out and just said, "I have an extra gear that you don't have," and he put it on display for 8 straight rounds and just whooped Spence's butt up and all over that ring.
To your point, Shally, I want you to take a guess. I'm not sure if either one of you guys looked up the pay-per-view numbers for it. Now, the average UFC pay-per-view draws between 2 and 3 million buys. How many pay-per-view buys do you think Spence Crawford? 5 million? 10 million?
No, I'd say probably like 850K.
I was gonna say like 700.
700,000 is the exact number of pay-per-view buys. That's absurd to me.
No, I mean the other thing though is that they competed with the UFC that weekend. And I'm not saying that was like a big factor in it, but you're splitting buys with those guys. Like, let's say if it was the weekend after, some of the people who bought the UFC card may have actually bought, that fight. But again, like Shally said, boxing
UFC
just isn't where
291. UFC 291 pay-per-view buys. I don't want you to get too far in this. That's why I interrupted you.
Nothing crazy.
I'll say 1.5.
I think it's less than that. Probably like 1.2.
750,000.
Oh, so they split it pretty
much.
Buys.
Yeah.
UFC 291. Not like anything special.
No champion. No champion on the line. And that's why I knew that UFC card wasn't going to do crazy numbers. But again, you have the people who...
It still beats Spence Crawford.
Exactly. But Dana White, that's because Dana White has put forth a master class of just investing in marketing. You have UFC fights that happen every weekend pretty much for the entire year. And Dana White puts on these cards and you're bringing in new fans, things like that. And boxing is the complete opposite. Their fans have been waiting for a super fight like this. And of course, those people are gonna buy it. But everybody else who hasn't looked at a boxing fight in 5 to 10 years, they probably could care less about this at this point. So I'm not surprised by those numbers.
It isn't that Spence is bad. It's simply Crawford proved he's on a different level.
I think the other interesting thing too is the rematch clause that was put into the contract. Spence wants it again, and he gets to dictate the weight for the next fight.
He wants to fight 154.
He wants to go up to 154. So it won't make a difference to me. I mean, I still think Crawford goes in there, and he's on a completely different level. But I do think it is interesting that he's already come out and said, hey, this is what I want. All this. He made $20 million off the fight, so he could have easily just said, hey, I'm good. I got my one loss. I'm going to retire, be good with it. But he wants it again. He wants to go up to 54. So, and you probably get to see that in December.
You get beat that bad, you got to have some kind of pride and be like, okay, like I can at least do better than this. I mean, I get the money thing, but you get whooped that bad, and you were coming in with a 0. There has to be some level of pride in it. We at least have to run it back and see. I agree. I don't think it's going to matter.
But I don't know where it can improve, right? Like
facts.
Crawford didn't even get touched.
He literally looked like he just went to the mall and came back. Like that's how his face looked after the fight. Spence looked like he went through the car wash and there was no wipers or anything, any towels or anything down. He just went through straight machines and he walked through.
I think the bigger concern is, to both your points, I think Bud's going to be even stronger if they go up in weight. And I mean, and you look at how hard he hit Spence, on Saturday night. He might finish him again. And then at that point, then it's like, I don't know. I mean, I don't know how much money they're going to make off the second fight because I don't know how many people are going to be interested to watch it after such a lopsided loss like that. Not for $90 anyway. Like that thing just might be on ESPN.
Just give it ESPN. Just Let's move it to ESPN.
No nothing. just
nothing. Just ESPN.
It'll still be a pay-per-view buy. It'll still get 500,000 buys.
Yeah, you get the boxing diehards, but I don't know about $90.
If they're smart, they'll put a great co-main, and the co-main on that card was actually pretty enjoyable to watch. But if they're smart, they put 2 more names underneath that as well to really, boost the buys for that one.
Well, I'll tell you right now, the only thing I watched on the boxing card was that fight. I was watching UFC 291, and what it was an overall very good card.
Everybody got finished.
Yeah. Kevin Holland, you were absolutely correct. Michael Chiesa got submitted in the first round. You could tell when he kept trying to take him down, and it wasn't working. And Kevin Holland finally got taken down, kind of, and he spun it right into a submission and made Michael Chiesa tap in the first round. And it looked effortless. So I got to give Kevin Holland his credit. We're talking about the undercard fights. Bobby Green subbed Tony Ferguson in the third round. Didn't really sub him, knocked him out cold. He wouldn't tap, so he couldn't. He just flatlined, and that should have been the end of his career. I don't know if Ferguson's come out and said he's retiring, but Dana White would be irresponsible to put that man back on any card. I do find it fun that Derek Lewis made it to the main card, and he looked great. He looked like the Derek Lewis of old. He looked like in better shape. He always has a fun interview afterwards. I can see the smirk, Cottrell. First round, absolute brutalizing. Flying knee out the gate and just.
The knee looked great. He did look in better shape. He came out there with the six-pack. That was very, very surprising to see out of Derek Lewis. But, the fight was only 20 seconds. I can't say, look, I threw a flying knee and was on top of him. And, that's a great performance. But I don't know how much Derek Lewis has in the tank, really. That was a great performance. But you're going up against the number 15th guy ranked in the heavyweight division. So I still don't know where to stand with Derek Lewis, but you're 100% right, though. His interviews after the fact are always gold. And I like seeing Derek Lewis win personally, so I'm okay with it. But I just don't know where he stacks up, though. I can't say he's back yet.
Well, I sped through those 3 fights because I had to pause on this one. I don't know, and I haven't really had a full conversation with Cottrell about it. I talked to Shally a little bit about it last night. Jan versus Alex Pereira. I'm embarrassed for the judges in that fight. I'll speak up very clearly. I don't know in what planet any single judge could have gave Alex Pereira 1 or 3. How? Why? Where?
Definitely can't give him 1, but you 100% could have gave him 3. The first 3 minutes of the round, nothing happened. And I get it. Jan got on top of him at the end of the round. And I had Jan winning the fight 2-1, but the third round was definitely up for debate. Jan was gassed after the first round. If you give Pereira the advantage for being the aggressor for the first 3 minutes of that third round, I could see how you give it to him. But Jan, to me, didn't do anything definitively to say he for sure won the third round. Now, the first round, I'm with you. There's no way you give him the first round. But that third round, I did think was a toss-up.
I don't think it was a toss-up. Shally, do you think that the third round was toss-up?
No, I don't. I again, and I've been repeating this before, I don't think because you're walking forward towards somebody that should win you a round. I do agree the first 3 minutes were very, blasé and not too much happened. But if you're going to go by what actually transpired in the last 2 minutes of the round, and octagon control, if you want to use that excuse for Pereira, then again, at the end of the fight, Jan was on top of him. Jan had control and was in the dominant position. So I don't know how you don't reward him there. I think it was crap. I think it was, I don't like putting on the tinfoil hat. I don't like doing all that stuff because, I want to believe that these fights are judged on merit and the winners are, scored and announced that way. But, I think Alex Pereira is a way more marketable fighter than Jan is. And, I hate to say that factors in, but maybe it did. You never know with what's going on behind the scenes. But we've seen so many bad decisions the last 12 months in the UFC. It just doesn't surprise me anymore. This probably isn't the most egregious one by any means, but it's up there. It's bad. I think if you put if you had any kind of, casual or even somebody who doesn't have any experience watching UFC and they watch that fight, I think they would tell you that, that Jan won the fight. And I agree with it. I told you last night, I thought, the same thing you did. I thought he won rounds 1 and 3, and I thought he was definitively the winner. You could tell he was pissed off as soon as they read it. Like he yanked his hand out of the ref's hand and walked out. It sucks. I mean, and people go, don't leave in the judge's hands, but while I agree with that, at the same time, it's a lot harder said than done. So you also have to be able to rely on a fair and, fair judging system that if you check off the components and, you win in the components that are supposed to be deciding these fights, then you should win the fight. It's also that simple. We've said it before. We've all said it. We've all agreed. I think the UFC has a judge problem. I do. And it's become rampant no matter where they are. I mean, they were in Utah this week. It's happened numerous times in Vegas. They have to address it. I know Dana bashes people in press conferences, but that really doesn't. It's a soundbite. It doesn't really help the situation.
Completely agree with you. I think that Jan won the fight. I think Jan definitely destroyed him in round 1. When we go into round 2, Alex Pereira dominated the round, won round 2. In round 3, it was close on the stand-up. Yes, Alex probably landed a couple more punches in the stand-up, but Jan took him down, controlled him on the ground, and I felt like that did enough to win the round. I don't think it was the most egregious decision in UFC history, but I will say that I thought it was very clear. I was very shocked when they announced it was a split decision, and then even more shocked when they announced it went to Alex Pereira. Now, you talk about the tinfoil hat. That's definitely the right move for the UFC. If it was close, it's the right move to have Alex win that fight. Like if you were picking who would be better to win for the UFC, it's 100% Alex.
Yeah, I mean, you can market a Pereira and Yuri fight for the vacant belt a lot better. And I'd be curious to see. I know they just announced another light heavyweight fight coming up here. Of course, that one won't be for the vacant belt, but I'd be curious to see how long they put Pereira on the shelf for. If they try to push it to the end of the year and see if Yuri can come back, or if they just have Pereira fight. For argument's sake, I say a nobody, because that light heavyweight division is pretty weak at this point, just so that you can get the gold on somebody. And Pereira is a guy that you can market. I mean, he beat Izzy. Clearly, he's not going to be the face of your franchise or anything like that, but Pereira is a guy that people know, and he's a household name now after that Izzy win. So I'd be curious to see how they go about Pereira and his upcoming fight.
Let's talk about the fight tonight, fight of the evening. Dustin Poirier, Justin Gaethje. The Kamaru Usman knockout kick. I'll tell you right now, it was almost a replica. Justin Gaethje caught him flush. Perfect. Right across the side of the head. Dustin said he didn't see it coming. He said he woke up and decided in the ring and realized that something bad happened. Did you guys listen to Dustin's press conference afterwards where he said he didn't see it coming, and he said that he woke up in the middle of the ring and he was grabbing Herb Dean's leg. Now, I will say this. Herb Dean put a pretty strong people's elbow down.
Yeah, came in hot. Came in real hot. I love Dustin Poirier's press conference, if I'm being honest. I liked everything he said. Again, I think that's a guy that, he might not be anybody's favorite fighter. I mean, I'm sure he is some people's favorite fighter, but I think he's a guy that everybody likes. I mean, he's never in a boring fight ever.
No.
Again, I mean, I don't think any of us picked at the end of the second round, as sure as hell not by, leg kick to the side of the head, but you put two good guys in there, and the guys that that are going to prepare like that, and they see the littlest thing, and they see it, actually in a live fight, situation, they go for it. That's obviously something they practiced in camp and something they thought they could, that they could utilize in the fight. And, he went out and executed a game plan and landed the kick. Like you said, I mean, it was flush as flush can be. I mean, he got his arm up there a little bit, but it didn't stop it. I mean, that was shin bone to the side of the head, and that was a wrap. Then he got, like you said, he got people's elbowed on top of that for, as a consolation prize. But
I just wanted to hear the ref go 1, 2, 3 after that people's elbow. But
that'd been funny.
My man Manny Fresh, franchise in the chat, said Justin had him down for 2 to 3 minutes. Dustin Poirier's press conference afterwards was perfect.
It was.
I won in life. I'm not supposed to be here. He's like, it's fighting. You get caught sometimes. And I feel good. I feel great. I had a great, no excuses. I loved every minute of it. And good for Justin Gaethje.
What was his quote when he said, I can't, it's like on the tip of my tongue and I can't think now. He said something like, I have to be some way if I lose or win, and I got to be the same way like when I lose. I just can't remember what it was, but I just thought it was a great quote, and it's just escaping me at this point. But yeah, I mean, Dustin Poirier came from. I don't think people realize where he's really from. Like people see Louisiana, like he's not from New Orleans or anything. Like he came from a very small town of like a couple hundred people, like in the middle of the swamp, kind of. Like he's not supposed to be where he is. He's not. Didn't have the cleanest childhood or upbringing either. So he's 100% right. I mean, he won at life, and good for him. I mean, the kid has a great perspective, and you'll see him back in the cage in 4 months against somebody probably.
I pulled up the quotes for you. He goes, I still feel great. I got hit with a shot I didn't see. Foot got around, good, got me. I still have tread on the tires. I feel great. The easiest weight cut of my life. You do all this work and nothing's guaranteed. I'm happy. My life is good. I've won in life. Where I come from, I've already won. And he said, I can compete with these young guys in the gym, but what am I fighting for? I want it to be for something. If it's just for another fight, no. On the thoughts of him retiring.
I'm not gonna lie to you, there's really nothing left else for him to do. I know in the post-fight presser, they kind of teased the idea of him fighting Beneil, and I believe he had said that he wasn't interested in doing that because that didn't move the needle. And he's not going to be fighting for a belt anytime soon because he's a part of the best division in all of the UFC right now. So I don't see what's next for Dustin. I think it would have to be a trilogy fight. I think best case scenario for him, he sits out maybe a year or so because Justin's going to get the next shot at the belt after Charles and Islam finish their second bout here. So I think he could potentially wait on Justin and then hope for him to lose, get that trilogy fight, and hope to come out on top there. But I don't really see much else left for Dustin. I think he's had a great career to this point, and that fight was a banger in the first round. I mean, they were going back and forth in the stand up, and I agree. I think Dustin has a lot left in the tank, but there's just no fights out there that really make sense for him at this point in his career outside of a trilogy with Justin.
The one thing I will say is Conor McGregor needs to shut up. Him being on Twitter, calling out Justin Gaethje after the fight. I love Justin Gaethje's comments. Did you guys see Justin Gaethje's comments about Conor McGregor after the fight?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, man. I love those comments, bro. He literally put Conor McGregor right in this place. I'm going to pull those up for you guys real quick before we move on to football. But Conor McGregor responds to Justin Gaethje responds to, I'm not going to fight someone on steroids. I think he's turned me down 6 times, and you usually have to lose to fight him. So I don't know what's going on. I love those comments. They were direct. They were awesome. I loved every minute of it.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Conor's entertaining and he's a lot of things, but I mean, at this point, I mean, from where he was to where he is now, it's been a long fall. I mean, I don't know if the guy really has. I think he likes to go on Twitter because everybody waits for it, like they know it's coming, and then everybody jumps on it. And it's sound bites and it's everything else, but I don't know how serious he really is about fighting again. It doesn't even sound like he's going to fight Chandler. Like he's not even in the USADA pool yet, so that's a minimum of 6 months before he could even fight Chandler. I think he just, throws stuff at the wall and sees what sticks. And, good for Gaethje. Gaethje just won the fight, and he wasn't going to really, play into the whole thing. Like you said, I tried to fight him before. Dude turned the fight down, and he want to fight me, And then I think he made the other one, too, that if he said, if Conor is on steroids, I'll fight him as long as I could take them, too, which I thought was hilarious, in the same breath as the other things he said. So, I mean, listen, it was a good night for Justin Gaethje. Congrats to him. And, if I'm him, I'm not getting caught up in the Conor stuff or anything like that. I mean, this is his title shot. He's got to sit there and just wait for the winner of Charles and Islam and, take a shot there and see what happens.
Okay. Well, gentlemen, I'm going to leave it up to you two because I know where I want to go here, but I'm going to leave it up to you two because we got a lot of people in the chat right now. Chat, come in, chat. Chat, come in quick, chat. Give me some likes. Give me some comments. Would you prefer us to go over the Big 12 next, or do you want to see the tight ends list? Big 12 predictions or the tight ends list? What do you guys? You know what I want to do tight ends. I can't wait to get in the damn list. I love doing the damn list. I love talking about damn lists, and we're finally into skill position players. But the Big 12 is very interesting, and I have clear-cut interest. Oh, franchise in their tight ends list for sure. Anybody else in the comments? Hop in the comments. What do you got? Tight ends list, Chris Olmstead.
I will say real quick while we're waiting for the rest of these responses here. The most interesting part about Gaethje utilizing that head kick is that he's in the same camp with Kamaru Usman. And so, of course, they've probably ran that kick back 1,000,005 times. And so Gaethje was like, that looked pretty cool. I'm going to try and utilize that in the fight. And then ultimately, Kamaru was in there celebrating with him. And they're showing the replay of Kamaru getting his lights knocked out and losing the belt 100 times. So that was
it was almost picture perfect. So right now we got 6-1 tight ends between the two chats. We got to do tight ends.
Go tight ends.
All right.
Kamaru got emotional when it was over.
Look, I'll tell you right now.
Right after he landed the head kick, like he got emotional. Like he was happy.
Love it. Let's get into tight ends. I can't wait. Guys, the list is out. The lists are out. Now, let me remind everybody at home. This is a projections list for 2023. We do not talk about these lists beforehand. We do not have information of who is going to have who on their list. I will give you a preview, though, because the list is out there. I do not have Darren Waller on my list because he's a quitter with a bad quarterback. That's why I don't have him on my list. Say whatever you want. That man quit on the Raiders. He quit on in a playoff game versus Cincinnati Bengals, and then he quit on them last season. I will not put that quitter on my list. He's Kenny Golladay 2.0. I don't care how high you guys have him on your list. I think Darren Waller's a goddamn quitter. I'm going to say that shit now. Next, I want to give a preview for my list. I want it so, and I envy Cottrell. Cottrell, I envy you, sir. I want it so badly to put Dalton Kincaid on this list. Oh, wow. I like that. Did you just add that?
I did.
Little ticker action. I love it. This is a projections list. It is okay to disagree, but if you disagree, we need to see your list. We need to see your top 10. Let's get started, and I love your number 10. It's got me fired up already.
So number 10 for me is Evan Ingram of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Funny enough, we did this list last year. I was the only one to have Evan Ingram on the list, and I fully expected, Evan to go to that Jacksonville scheme and be with Doug Peterson, who loves to utilize tight ends, to have a great year. Now, and we saw that he had a career year last year with Trevor Lawrence throwing him the rock. I do think this upcoming year, his numbers do drop a little bit because they added a weapon in Calvin Ridley. So I think that takes a little bit of the numbers away from him. But again, the way Doug Peterson loves to utilize that tight end position and the way that Trevor Lawrence can, throw him the ball. And I do think now, especially having Calvin Ridley on the opposite side of a guy like Christian Kirk will open up a little bit more across the middle for Evan. I think he's going to have another great year. So that's why he's coming in at number 10 for me.
John Suggs already in the comments. How the hell does Shally not have Njoku? I love it, John. So
show me your list.
Yeah, show me your list. That's what we say.
Show me your list.
Show me the money. So, but before Shally goes, you brought up last year's list, and I always have it ready. And I'm not gonna lie to you, bro. Outside of quitter Darren Waller, who will never be on my list again, I nailed my damn list. Travis Kelce. Mark Andrews, George Kittle, Kyle Pitts. All right, that's a mistake. Got it. Darren Waller. All right. TJ Hawkinson, Dalton Schultz, Dallas Goedert, Dawson Knox, Hayden Hurst, Pat Freiermuth. That's a damn good list.
Facts.
It's a damn good list.
I didn't have Freiermuth last year, so they good. All
right, Shally, give me your number 10, and I love your number 10. I love Shally's number 10. Love him.
I got number 10. I got Dalton Schultz from now the Houston Texans, ex-Dallas Cowboy. But we say it all the time. It's one of those cliches, but it's true. Young rookie QB, who is their best friend? Tight end all the time. Guys capable of catching 50 to 60 balls. CJ Stroud is going to start for the Houston Texans this year. Start as a true rookie. He's going to be CJ Stroud's best friend. He's always going to be the safety valve. Still an athletic guy, creates separation, go over the middle, run routes, good blocker. Again, number 10. I think I don't think he puts up Dallas numbers, but I think he puts up numbers enough, to warrant being on this list. That's why I have a number 10. I
got to shout out my man Manny franchise. Puts his top 10 out there. Little Cole Kmet action. Cole Kmet had a pretty good season last year. He said, I'm a huge Kmet guy. I think he's undervalued. Bro, I hear you. Cole Kmet was definitely in consideration for my top 10.
Only reason why Cole, for me, isn't quite there yet, and he would have probably been like 13 or 14 for me, because they brought in Tunyon, and Tunyon's going to get a lot of love at tight end too, so I do think he's going to have to split snaps there. But
he's going to get a lot of red zone.
Cole Kmet's definitely a great player, so I get it.
All right. My number 10, I almost didn't put on my list. And I'll tell you right now, I don't have any confidence in. It's not Kyle Pitts is the problem. Kyle Pitts is not my problem. Go back to his rookie year. Kyle Pitts is not my problem. My problem is they don't have a damn quarterback that can throw him the football. Unless they plan on starting Taylor Heineke, then I could see Kyle Pitts here. That's why I have him number 10. I think they'll give up on Desmond, get rid of her, and go to Taylor Heineke, and then Kyle Pitts will sneak back on the list. That's why he's my number 10. You don't have a quarterback that can throw the football. The guy stinks. He's awful. 32 starting quarterbacks, I have him ranked 34th. He's the worst quarterback in football. So I'll take Kyle Pitts at number 10. Number 9, give credit where credit is due. Credit where credit is due. Last year, Cottrell predicted Evan Ingram would have a good year in Jacksonville. Now, he was borderline top 10 last year. That's where he was, right? What is he? I think he was 9th in receiving yards, 11th in touchdowns. Like, he wasn't bad at the tight end position. I think he has an even better year this year. And I agree with Cottrell with the addition of Calvin Ridley. Now, here's the thing, right? Christian Kirk's going to move right back into the slot where he belongs, because they're going to have Zay Jones on the opposite side of Calvin Ridley. It allows them to have that 3 wide set with Christian Kirk back in the slot going against safeties. I love that. Love that. I think Evan Ingram, it opens up the middle of the field. And I think that Evan Ingram lands at number 9.
Number 9 for me, I have Dawson Knox of Buffalo Bills. A guy that has continued to get better and better and come out of a role play situation into more of a consistent weapon. Over the last 2 years, only tight ends that have caught more touchdown passes than him are Kelsey, excuse me, and George Kittle. I think you're going to see a lot of 2 tight end sets this year. Stephon Diggs is still obviously going to be the number 1, target in Buffalo, but I think you're going to see them run a lot of 2 tight end stuff with Dawson Knox and Dalton Kincaid, and I think he's going to be able to free up, and I think his numbers go up this year. So I have him number 9 for me. Still a young kid. I don't think he's at a ceiling yet.
My man franchise said even behind Jordan Love, and I'm going to say yes. I think Jordan Love is closer to number 20 than he is to 32, if I'm being honest with you. I think Jordan Love has a good season this year, but you'll hear about it later.
I hope not too much later. I hope you're not talking like 3 or 4 weeks later.
Oh, no. Okay. He's not cracking my top. Yo, my top 10 is sacred, bro. My top 10 is sacred.
Hey, you said you'll see, down the line. I just wanted to make sure we weren't pushing that territory. But number 9 for me is the opposite tight end in Buffalo, and that's Dalton Kincaid. I think Dalton Kincaid being drafted to Buffalo where he was, early second round, I think they're going to really be able to utilize him, not just as your prototypical tight end, but he's a smaller tight end. So I think they're going to be sets where, a traditional 3-receiver set, you may see Dalton Kincaid lined up out wide and things like that. I mean, he does have that smaller frame. And while he was at Utah, I mean, they utilized him pretty much all over the field. I think Dalton Kincaid is a great athlete, and he has great hands. And the thing about him is that he's tough. So I don't think, him going to Buffalo, being in that cold environment towards the end of the season will really phase him. I think he's going to go in there and, obviously they have Diggs and Davis, but I think he can go in there and provide a different element than what Dawson Knox can. You don't throw Dawson Knox out there to go beat, one-on-one like a linebacker or anything like that. You put him out there because scheme-wise he knows where to go, and, he has reliable hands, and you can throw it over the top to him, things like that. Dalton Kincaid can get moved all over, and so I think Buffalo really utilizes him this upcoming year. Number 8 for me, I do have Kyle Pitts. Again, Kyle Pitts, he came in at number 8, and he is a guy who, same as Gene, I almost didn't want to put on my list. I do think Desmond Ridder is going to struggle again this upcoming year in Atlanta, but I think Kyle Pitts is too talented. And when you have all that talent, I think as much as Ridder struggles, I think he's just going to be like, well, Kyle Pitts is up down there somewhere, and he's going to throw him the ball, and that's ultimately how Kyle Pitts is going to eat. The other thing that's nice about Pitts is that he's such a great athlete that he will have plays designed for him, whether it be tight end screens or just different route concepts that Ridder just won't be able to miss. So I think Pitts will have a much better season this year than he did last year, and so comes in at number 8 for me.
Real quick, before you go, Shally, I need to read out some of John Suggs' comments on Sports Empire side. He says, Taysom Hill, Dawson Knox could be honorable mention. Can't forget Gerald Everett. And he also says, Gene is saying Jordan Love will get around 8 wins. Yeah, that's about right. About 8 wins. Not arguing there. John also says Cottrell doesn't have Dalton Schultz. He was ranked 4th in touchdowns and 5th in receiving first downs last year.
So the reason why I don't have Schultz is I do think that with CJ being in Houston, I mean, CJ's coming from a team that we didn't utilize tight end at all at Ohio State. And I do think, them having other weapons around, not great weapons, but, they got Tank Dell, they got Mechie. Like, I think those young receivers are going to have a better connection with CJ as opposed to the tight end Love. So reason why Schultz didn't make the cut for me.
My man Joseph Jeffers is such a loyal Titans fan. Love it, brother. Love it. Sorry, did I miss out Chiga Kongwu getting honorable mention? I'll let you listen to it on the playback. Shall I?
Number 8, I got maybe the smartest tight end on this list, and I say that in regards to he got the hell out of New York and away from Daniel Jones. I got Evan Ingram from Jacksonville Jaguars. You guys have both talked about him already. Listen, I mean, the big thing with him is when he could stay on the field, he was usually pretty productive, even with on those bad Giants teams. He's now on a team that has a great quarterback, has a great coach who loves to utilize the tight end in his game plans, and he's surrounded by other weapons where he doesn't have to carry the load. Like Gene already said, the way the Jacksonville Jaguars are going to line up this year, his target share, I think it actually increases. I think he might lose some red zone targets, but would be able to put Christian Kirk back in his natural position. You're going to get Calvin Ridley, who is before his stupid suspension, was a borderline top 10 wide receiver. And then you got Zay on the other side. That team is going to be loaded offensively, and they still have that ETN coming out of the backfield. They're going to be an offensive force this year, and I think Evan Ingram continues, as long as he can stay on the field, I think he continues to put up his fair share of numbers. You look at receptions and yards after the catch and receiving yards, he's top 4 in every single category the last 3 years. That's with him missing a couple games to injury. So when you put those stats, in perspective with the likes of a couple guys we're going to talk about later on these lists, it's impressive. That's why he made my list, number 8. I think he has another very good year in Jacksonville.
Well, my number 8 is a guy that, the 2 things you rely on as a rookie quarterback is a run game and a check down tight end. And I think Dalton Schultz was signed to big money over in Houston to be that reliable force for CJ Stroud. I think Schultz had one of his best seasons of yet last year. He got paid this offseason. And I think he'll be a big part of Houston Texans offense. Remind me, guys, who's the number 1 wide receiver over there in Houston? I mean, I'm just wondering, could be Dalton Schultz this year. That's my number 8. My number 7 is the guy that's getting training camp praise all over. Deshaun Watson goes back to anywhere near the form that he was in before he was traded, before everything that happened in Houston. David Njoku is going to have a phenomenal year, not just a good year, a phenomenal year. I almost have him higher. David Njoku, he caught a ridiculous pass in Browns practice the other day. Deshaun Watson threaded the needle. He's a huge target. He's walking into the prime of his career with a quarterback that has a full offseason. I think David Njoku could crack the top 5 on this list by the end of the year. I'll go David Njoku number 7, and he's a lot closer to 5 than he is 10.
So number 7, I have probably the best athlete on this list out of anybody.
Yep.
And probably the kid that's in the worst position out of anybody on this list. I got Kyle Pitts from the Atlanta Falcons. You want the most staggering stat from last year that he has. 26% of the balls that were thrown his way as targets were considered off-target throws last year. 1 out of every 4 balls thrown this kid's way were considered off-target throws. Marcus Mariota, Desmond Ridder, they're just not it. I still think he's going to put up decent numbers. I think Atlanta is at least trending a little bit in the right direction as a team, but at the quarterback position, they're not. If Kyle Pitts had a great quarterback, he's probably top 3 or 4 on this list. That being said, he is where he is because I think his ceiling is limited simply because of who he plays with. So I have Kyle Pitts number 7.
Well, if Atlanta was smart, if they got out of it early, they would be very wise to try and tank and get Caleb Williams next year. But that'll be for a completely separate show. Number 7.
Since you don't have Pitts any higher than 7, I just want to ask you this question. I didn't want to go too far without saying it, right? We all said we're not big Desmond Ridder fans here, right? We're all in agreement there.
Right.
Can we not go in agreement with the fact that we think Atlanta's GM's got to be out of his friggin' mind?
In the sense of what?
Well, follow me. Last 3 top 10 picks the Atlanta Falcons had, they went Drake London, Bijan Robinson, and Kyle Pitts. They don't have a quarterback. Am I missing something here?
I mean, to be fair, this draft class was not one where you go reach for one. But with that said, I definitely would have. I mean, Derek Carr was out there on the market. You had Aaron Rodgers obviously got moved. Like, I would have definitely tried to go get a veteran. Worst case scenario, I would have brought in Gardner Minshew or Jacoby Brissett. But Desmond Ridder wouldn't have been my guy to
I'm just trying to figure out. They go running back, tight end, wide receiver. I just don't know how that fits in the puzzle if you don't have a quarterback.
The thing is, though, if they get a quarterback, that's a phenomenal offense.
Okay. Tell me why Njoku's great number 7 for me.
Njoku, number 7, Cleveland Browns. I think that with Deshaun Watson does like throwing the tight ends. I think Njoku is a very, very great athlete, and I do think him being, in that Browns system, you can have a little bit more versatility with him. You can split him out wide, and he's a guy who loves to go get the jump ball. Earlier on in his career, he did struggle with catching, just very basic passes. But I think he has worked on that a lot, and you saw it last year. I think he's coming off the best year of his career, and that was with the Jacoby for 11 games and Deshaun for the next 6. So I do think Deshaun coming in and having that consistent play at quarterback is going to help Njoku, and I think he's going to be primed for a phenomenal year. And I think this will be his best year to date. Now, number 6 for me is Darren Waller. You talk about Darren Waller quitting with his last franchise, and I'm 100% behind you. But the fact of the matter is, Darren Waller is by far the best receiver and or tight end on that New York Giants team. I think Daniel Jones is going to consistently find ways to throw him the ball, and I also believe that Brian Dable is smart enough to find different creative ways to get Darren Waller the ball. When Darren Waller is out there on the field, he's a physical specimen, and he's one of the better athletes that are going to be on the field. So I do think Darren Waller finds his way on this top 10 list because Daniel Jones will be, targeting him more than anybody else on that roster.
I agree with Cottrell. I mean, I think the biggest thing, Darren Waller's got to do is stay on the field. He's missed 14 games over the last 2 seasons. When he is on the field, he's productive. Since 2019, he is third in reception and receiving yards amongst all tight ends. And he's got 12 100-yard games since 2019. The only person that's got more than him is Travis Kelce. Guy's a mismatch nightmare for defensive coordinators when he's healthy. And I agree with Cottrell. I think he's going to end up being, Daniel Jones is probably number one target. So I think that alone, I think will help him, get the numbers he needs to justify being on this list. That's why I have him in the middle of it. I have him number 6.
I just want to answer Adam Hurley's question. He might have missed the beginning of the show. Well, yeah, we do talk boxing. We talked about the Earl Spence Bud Crawford fight. Appreciate you tuning in. Just if you want to download us on Spotify, it'll be there later tonight or tomorrow morning. You can catch our segment there. Appreciate it, Adam. Now, you guys just both talked about Darren Waller. I'm going to tell you right now, the best catcher of the football in the city for the New York Giants is Jalen Hyatt. Jalen Hyatt's going to be the guy, if anybody, that you want to have that'll actually catch the football. And then Kyle said, no Gesicki or Henry. I actually think Gesicki has a pretty good year over there. I really believe that. I'm just being honest with you. But
everything, all his numbers tanked last year.
Yeah,
they don't. With Waddle and what's his face on that team?
Cheetah.
I was a Gesicki guy for a long time. His target share, his receptions, everything went down. Mike McDonald doesn't really run a lot of sets for the tight ends. I think he's a good player. I think he's in a bad situation now because he's more of kind of like a offline tight end anyway, more of like kind of like a slot tight end guy. So they just don't utilize him there with what they have on the outside now.
Well, he's a Patriot now, so I mean, it's still a bad situation because he's got Mac throwing him the ball, but
it's even worse.
If you eliminate the last week of the season where Freiermuth left the game early versus Cleveland, eliminate that game. In 11 games with Kenny Pickett, Pat Freiermuth had 52 catches for 600 yards. He averaged 5 receptions and 7 targets per game in those 11 games. I think Pat Freiermuth is in for one of the biggest leaps at the tight end position. He's got great hands, and he's got a great connection with his young quarterback. I think George Pickens has looked phenomenal at camp. You guys all seen the catch he's made. I think Deontay Johnson's looked good at camp. But I think Freiermuth is that security blanket for Kenny Pickett right over the middle of the field. And I think Pat Freiermuth is going to have a huge jump this year. Neither one of you guys have him on your list. And we're going to look at this list next year, and we're going to say Gene was right or Gene was completely wrong. And I'm fine with that, right? I'm fine with being on my ledge. I'm on my ledge again. But I love Freiermuth at number 6. Number 5 is a guy that sits in Minnesota that had a phenomenal back half of the season. I was actually tempted to put him number 4. Little homerism. But TJ Hawkinson was incredible for the Minnesota Vikings last year. When he left Detroit, went to Minnesota, he had a 10 reception game. He had 2 touchdown games for Minnesota. I think TJ Hawkinson is walking into the prime of his career, and Kirk Cousins has all the weapons he needs. You got Justin Jefferson on one side. You got my man Hawkinson on the other. And I won't talk about speed racer Jordan Addison today, but he's got weapons. And I think TJ Hawkinson's going to be the reception guy that takes a lot of those catches away that Adam Thielen had last year. So I got Hawkinson number 5.
I'm going to echo a lot of what Gene said. You got a 25-year-old tight end who went from Detroit into an even better situation, just entering the prime of his career. And last year he set career highs for both receptions and receiving yards. And Gene mentioned the trade from week 8 to the end of the season. He was number 2 in receptions and receiving yards in the NFL for tight ends. Had an instant connection with Kirk Cousins. And I think they'll continue to use him and utilize him a lot and target him. Obviously, Jay Jettis is going to get the lion's share of everything, but he's going to be a guy over the middle that can find gaps. And we like to bang on Kirk Cousins a lot, and rightfully so sometimes, but he does put up numbers. He'll get TJ Hawkinson the ball. So I think he has another great year. I think he eclipses all his career highs from last year. Now having a full season and a full training camp pretty much in that offense, more comfortable now. So I think TJ Hawkinson has another great year.
Yeah, I mean, there's not too much really more for me to add with TJ Hawkinson. I do think that Adam Thielen not being there anymore, and Jordan Addison, of course, being a rookie, I do think there will be a little bit of growing pains there. I do think Kirk Cousins will be a little bit more comfortable with Hawkinson, and so I think Hawkinson's going to be primed for a great year, and I wouldn't be surprised ultimately. I think he could possibly end at number 2 I think he goes high as 2 on this list. I think Hawkinson can get a lot of love there in Minnesota, and Kirk's gonna throw him the rock. So I like Hawkinson at 5. Number 4 for me is Dallas Goedert. I think Dallas Goedert being in that Philadelphia Eagles system, he's got 2 great receivers on the outside that opens up a lot for him, and Jalen Hurts is very comfortable throwing him the rock. Dallas Goedert has also showed that I do know in more of a microcosm, but in some instances, I know Philly fans have had some issues with his hands in certain areas of the game, but I think Dallas Goedert is just one of those guys who can get open across the field, and Jalen Hurts finds him when things get tight. So I love what he can do. I love his improv as well. So I think Dallas Goedert also ultimately has a top 4 tight end season this upcoming year.
You say that, and Shalley's about to go on. Shalley, I don't want to take any of your fire. Only thing I'll point to, right? Yeah, last year we talked about the microcosm he had at dropping the football. You look at the way he caught the ball in the playoffs and the Super Bowl, in the cold weather game, in the NFC Championship game, in the NFC Divisional game, and in the Super Bowl. He had none of those issues. That ball he caught on the sideline in the Super Bowl in between 2 Chiefs defenders, one of the best catches made of the whole year, and that's more of the reason that my projection's so high on him. Sorry, Shalley, I apologize.
You're good. I was going to touch on it anyway, but Gene didn't really steal my thunder, but Gene brought up a good point. Dallas Goedert definitely had like a lull in the middle of the season last year. Had a couple bad drops, had a fumble, and then he kind of, I don't know what changed. I don't know if somebody just talked to him, but then he just flipped the switch. This guy's kind of been, a guy that's kind of been in the middle of these lists for the last couple of years. Kind of been a little undervalued, maybe a little underappreciated. Not anymore. Had a great year last year. Led all tight ends with Yak. The great Yak stat of yards after catch per reception. Jalen Hurts' QBR was over 93 every time he targets him. And he's one of, if not the best blocker on this list. Maybe other than Kittle, probably maybe the most well-rounded tight end in regards to doing everything tight ends do. He's great. Cottrell mentioned as well, he gets to work pretty much the middle of the field by himself a lot or out in the flats because he's got 2 studs that can run on the outside, and A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. And
he also has an elite wide receiver in Quez Watkins. Quez Watkins told you he's elite
in the slot. Doesn't hurt either, but the guy does everything. Again, he's super well rounded. Does everything either on the good, great, or elite level. And they're going to continue to feature him. He's a big cog and a huge part of this Philadelphia offense that I think is going to continue to churn out points. So I have a number 4 this year. I really, really toyed with putting him at number 3. I really did.
See, I toyed with putting him at number 5. I feel like he's closer to 5 than he is 3, and that's okay. I have Goddard at 4. I think it was a little homerism me having him at 4. If I'm being completely honest with you, I think him and TJ Hawkinson, you can flip-flop in that position. But Dallas Goedert, the reason he's so high is how good he looked down the stretch, how good he looked in the playoffs. He became that go-to guy. His hands were great. His route running has improved. His blocking even improved. His blocking was great down the stretch. Dallas Goedert had a really good end of the season. He's my number 4. My number 3 is Lamar Jackson's favorite target, Mark Andrews. Do I think he'll get a little bit less targets this year with Odell Beckham Jr. there? Hey, they got that stud Nelson Aguilar over there. Rashad Bateman, Zay Flowers. I think there'll be less targets for Mark Andrews. That's why I can't put him as high as number 2. But he's number 3 for me because he's a perfect security blanket for Lamar Jackson, and Lamar always knows where to find him. Yeah, you have these new toys. You have Zay Flowers. You have Odell Beckham Jr. But Lamar will always look to Mark Andrews when the time is tough and the receiving gets tight. So Mark Andrews is my number 3.
Yeah, Gene hit this on the head. When they get in the red zone, He's got 25 receiving touchdowns over the last 4 years. That's fifth among all pass catchers, not just tight ends. You're talking about wide receivers. He's tied with Mike Evans for fifth. This guy is a red zone magnet. Gene hit it right on the head. When the windows get smaller and the passes have to come out quicker, Lamar Jackson's going to look for Mark Andrews. That's where he's going to go. I do think his receptions probably go down a little bit over the course of the game with all those new weapons with OBJ and everything that Gene just mentioned. I don't think his red zone production is going to go down, though, simply because he's a nightmare matchup for linebackers. He's big, he's fast, he runs great routes. And then on top of that, he's another one of the guys on the list that's an elite blocker. Had one of the highest win rates for rushing block for rush block last year. So again, I have him number 3. I think the Baltimore offense in general is better this year. You would hope anyway. There's no more really excuses for anybody on that offense. So I have him number 3 just because I don't think his red zone production is going to drop at all this year.
Number 3 for me is George Kittle. Now, if you're asking me who the better tight end is between George Kittle and Mark Andrews, I'm going to tell you George Kittle, and I'm going to say it every single time. George Kittle's a better blocker. And when it comes to what they do in the receiving game, it's always going to be close, and George Kittle's a better athlete. Now, with that said, Mark Andrews, numbers-wise, hasn't had a season that wasn't better than George Kittle since 2019. So the past 3 seasons, Mark Andrews has had better years. And, it's not necessarily a knock on George Kittle. I just think at the end of the year, numbers-wise, Mark Andrews is going to have a slightly better year this upcoming year. So Kittle, of course, there is a little bit of uncertainty who's going to be under center there in San Francisco. I really don't think it matters too much because George Kittle is a guy who gets open and he can create yak as well. I said it already, phenomenal in the run blocking scheme. I mean, pass pro as well. He's the best blocking tight end in football, and I don't think there's any doubt about that. So I do think George Kittle has a great year with whoever's throwing him the rock there in San Francisco. My number 2, that would be in Mark Andrews. I think him and Lamar just having that connection, and if Mark Andrews stays healthy for the entire year, Lamar is going to force feed him the ball no matter who's on the outside. So I just think numbers-wise, Mark Andrews ends a little bit higher than where Kittle's at right now.
Number 2, I got George Kittle. Echo some of the stuff Cottrell said. He is the best pass blocking tight end in the league. The dude is also a max effort guy, but you combine all that with being an elite athlete and just a dude who he's a grinder, man. He's a gamer. He's the type of guy like everybody in the NFL would want George Kittle to be their tight end. Dude had 11 touchdown receptions last year, and that's with playing with 3 different quarterbacks. Guy has chemistry with all of them. It didn't slow him down whatsoever. I think he has another great year. I don't think anything changes. George Kittle's also I think the best part about George Kittle is he has that one catch almost every single game where he either finds himself all alone or he makes a great run, breaks a couple tackles, makes a couple guys miss. He's a highlight, man. I love the guy. I love the way he plays. I love his attitude. I love everything about him. We have a great tight end, Dallas Goedert, so, I'm not looking for a new one or anything, but George Kittle would be at the very top of my list for a guy that I would bring to Philly that I think would, embody, the fans and everything here. He's that type of guy. So number 2 for me this year, it's hard to get to the number 1, the top of this list for obvious reasons.
You mentioned 11 touchdowns. I'll one up you, right? Brock Purdy looks like he's going to be their starting quarterback this year. George Kittle had 7 touchdowns in the last 4 weeks of the NFL season. And it looked like his connection with Brock Purdy was better than what it was with Jimmy Garoppolo and what it was with Trey Lance, if I'm being completely honest with you. We didn't really get to see much with Trey Lance. He played in one monsoon game and then got hurt in the first quarter of his second game. But it looked like his connection with Brock Purdy was growing. Brock Purdy's going to be their starting quarterback. He's the best blocking tight end in football as it is. I think George Kittle could be in for a monster year. 7 touchdowns last 4 weeks of the season. Very, very solid numbers. Not many teams are putting up those numbers, and George Kittle is a perfect in that passing offense, especially when you got a guy that can run Kyle Shanahan's offense that's hitting their spots, that's doing exactly what Kyle is asking him to do. The reason Brock Purdy works so well for that Kyle Shanahan system is because Brock Purdy is going to do exactly what Kyle Shanahan tells him to do. He's not going to ad-lib. He's not going to do anything crazy. He's going to throw the ball where it's supposed to go, when it's supposed to go there. George Kittle's my number 2. My number 1's 1 of 1, right? Guys, I don't want to. You look at quarterbacks, right? There's one, and then there's the rest of the list. You look at tight ends, the same damn thing. I know that this didn't happen this past year, but I want to point to the play in the Kansas City Buffalo game in the AFC divisional playoffs 2 years ago with 13 seconds left on the clock, or it was actually 7 at this point, where the play was not ran for Kelsey to go across the middle. It was ran for a totally different play, and without even saying anything, just a head nod or a signal, Kelsey and Mahomes broke off of what they were going to do. Kelsey ran to an open spot on the field. Mahomes hit him. That's the type of confidence that Patrick Mahomes, the best quarterback in the league, has with Travis Kelsey, the best tight end in the league. Travis is fired up, right? He kind of takes everything personal. Love everything about him. He's already getting in fist fights in camp. He already had to release an apology for it. Travis Kelsey is of the Kelsey family, and they're all about passion and playing hard. Travis Kelsey is my number one, and he's one of one.
I 100,000,000% agree with Gene. He's won by a wide margin, and that's saying something when you look at the guys that are right underneath him. You look at since 2015, he has the most receiving yards in the NFL, and that's not out of tight ends, that's out of anybody. So you look at the wide receivers that have been in this league since 2015, he has more receiving yards than any of them. I think the crazier stat that I saw, he now only trails Jerry Rice in playoff receiving yards and playoff receiving touchdowns. He's an elite tight end with an elite quarterback. It's a deadly combination. Don't know really what else to say. The guy at times for being a tight end is uncoverable. And then on top of that, they run great sets for him, and they run plays to get him open. And then on top of all that, you factor in what Gene was just talking about, the improvisation that him and Mahomes have and that connection they have. They always find each other somehow. And it's just too damn hard to defend. And on top of all that, he's a good athlete. So it's just, one of one is a great way to describe him. He's number one on this list by a fair, if not far margin, in my opinion. He's going to be the GOAT when it's all said and done. I don't think anybody would argue that as well. So number one on this list again this year. He's probably going to be there for some time to come as well.
Yeah, number one, Travis Kelsey, this was a list with, it doesn't matter what you do 2 through 10, number one, pretty clear cut, who that best tight end in football is. Obviously, you guys already mentioned he's got the number one quarterback throwing him the football. And with Travis Kelsey, the other thing too is that his consistency, he's always out there on the field. There's never a time where, there's a nagging hamstring injury or anything like that that's keeping him off the field for 3-4 weeks at a time. He's put up 1,000 yards and, it feels like 6 straight seasons, if not more at this point. Travis Kelsey is one of one. That's the perfect way to describe him. And he's on a Kansas City Chiefs team where they have no legit number one receiver. You talk about Houston's, number one receiver over there, number one receiver in Kansas City. Who's it going to be? Sky Moore? You have Travis Kelsey, and he's the guy with the best connection with the best quarterback. And then, he's really the only one you trust full-fledged, wholeheartedly to beat their one-on-one matchup, no matter who's in front of them. So Travis Kelsey is number one. And again, there was absolutely no doubt about it at this point.
To help you out on that one, Cottrell, he's at 7. He's had 7 straight 1,000 yards receiving, which is obviously a record for tight ends.
We do. Just to answer your question, CR Media, my man Chase. We do.
But Gronk's got about 1 million more miles on his body than Kelsey does.
Yeah, way more injuries, elbow injury.
It's the way he played too. Not. Yeah.
Okay, well, that's our tight ends list. Time to get into some Big 12 football. You guys are tuning in for the college football segment. Here it is. The Big 12 is here. I think the Big 12 is going to produce a playoff team. I really do. I don't know. I'm going to go too far when I say that. But I think there's a team in the Big 12 that's going to make some real noise. But I will diverge, and I will go third this week since I went first last week. Cottrell, start us off.
So, this week, of course, I love college football here. I will say I do think as a whole the Big 12 will be a little bit down this year, and it's also going to be a little bit interesting. I mean, you have BYU joining the Big 12, Cincinnati will be the new addition as well, and I mean, the one constant here is, for me at least, my Big 12 championship game here. I'm going with two teams that have consistent quarterback play, and they're bringing back guys who were on the team last year. One of those teams, I'm going with Oklahoma. I don't love the Oklahoma roster, but them bringing back, fifth-year quarterback at this point, Dylan Gabriel, him being in that system with Brent Venables. Brent Venables will have that defense, more prepared this year, and now they know how to run that system. They also did have a pretty good incoming freshman class as well. So I think Dylan Gabriel leads them to a Big 12 championship berth. Crazy part about it is I think they get there and they're 9-3 at the end of the year. I don't think they have any, miraculous season or anything like that. I just think the Big 12 is going to be that down. But the other side, it's going to be the other side of that river. I'm going with Texas. Quinn Ewers is leading those guys. I know Bijan left. I don't care. I like Texas. Quinn Ewers, I was high on him when he came out of high school. I think Quinn Ewers is going to show again this upcoming year that he is going to be a top five pick in the next NFL draft in 2024. And his connection with Xavier Worthy is going to be electric all season. And so I think that Texas team overcomes any deficiencies that they have on the defensive side of the ball. And Quinn Ewers goes out there and shows that Texas is back. So that's my championship game.
Shally.
All right. I think I'm going to echo a little bit of what Cottrell said. I think this is the last year of the Big 12, as we pretty much all know it is. It's the last year that it's together. You got the two blue bloods, both moving to the SEC next year. You have new blood coming in at BYU. There's talks of, Colorado announced the other day they're coming back starting again next year now. So Deion's going to be back in the Big 12. But I'm going to get in my teams here that I think are going to make the push and make the Big 12 title game. I'm going to start with the first team. I'm going to start with Oklahoma Sooners. I agree with Cottrell. Head coach Brent Venables' first season in Norman didn't exactly go as planned. They finished the season 6-7. Was not, obviously I don't think it's what he had in mind for his first season. They were 0-5 in one-score games though, so they were there. I mean, the offense kept them in the games. Lack of defense just killed them down the stretch. But as Cottrell mentioned, Dylan Gabriel, fifth-year senior, returns to lead the offense, along with the two-headed monster running backs they have in Gavin Sawchuk and Javante Barnes. They will probably run the ball more this year than they have in the past. They used to be kind of a run-and-gun type team. I think you're going to see a little bit more of a pro-stat style offense out of Oklahoma this year. You got to give Venables credit, like Cottrell said. They had a really good recruiting class come in. He had a big couple transfer portal guys that he signed as well to help shore up the defense. He's a defensive guy. Everybody forgets that's where he came from. He's the defensive coordinator for Clemson forever. So, they gave up over six yards per carry last year, just brutal. And on top of that, they were third in the country giving up big plays. They just got gashed at the absolute wrong time. Like I said, some of it was bad luck, some of it was just not playing well, in crucial points of the game. I think if they can improve on that 0-5 record, in one-score games for 2022, I think they have the talent, to get to the title game. I agree with Cottrell. I don't think this is a team that's going to walk into the Big 12 title game with one loss. It's funny thing is he said 9-3. I have them with the same exact record going in. But I have Oklahoma making the title game as well. And I have them playing Texas Longhorns. I think on paper, I think with Steve Sarkisian, what he's done with recruiting, this is it, right? This is finally the year. This has to be it. Texas is finally back. We've been saying it for like 3 years now. The press gets excited, all the fans and, ESPN, everybody gets excited. But listen, Texas is one of those programs. If they're good, it's better for college football. They are, for however you want to cut it, they're one of the top 10 or 15 blue blood programs in the country. They just are. But if this isn't the year, I don't know what is. I don't know if they would fire their coach heading into the SEC because I think that's a dicey gamble to take. But if not, if they don't succeed this year, Steve Sarkisian's, ass is squarely on the hot seat. But we already mentioned the big time players. I think Texas will be looking to win the Big 12 in its last year as a member before they go to the SEC. They would love to hang that over Oklahoma's head, I'm sure. They're going to be led by junior quarterback Quinn Ewers. We already talked about him. Highly recruited Ohio State before he transferred out. And his best weapon is a guy that committed to Michigan and couldn't get in, so he went to Texas. So you got two Big Ten kids that are leading Texas, which is kind of ironic in a weird way. But they're going to have the best offense in the conference. It's not going to be close. I think they're the most explosive offense in the conference. If Quinn Ewers takes that next step, which we're all across the board expecting him to do, I think he has a great year. I think the biggest key that I don't think anybody's mentioned because they want to talk about all the fancy names is their entire starting offensive line is back this year. I think it takes a lot of pressure off Quinn Ewers. They went through the growing pains last year, especially early in the season, kind of led to him getting hurt as well. I think having all of them back, all that experience, playing together as a full unit again, I think helps them tremendously. Defensively, they returned 6 starters as well. So they're going to have experience on that side of the ball for a unit that at times last year played amazing. We all watched the Alabama game where they made Bryce Young look, very pedestrian for 59 minutes of the game, but Bryce Young did Bryce Young things for the final minute. So I think Texas gets there. I could see them easily rolling in there undefeated, maybe one loss. I'm not going to foreshadow anything as well, but Gene's opening statement might be on to something. So we'll see how the season plays out. But I got Texas, Oklahoma. We're going to get a rematch of the Red River rivalry in the championship game, and I got Texas winning.
Okay, well, gentlemen, I don't think it's any surprise. I'm tell you my winner right away. We're going to hook 'em horns. Texas, Quinn Ewers, Xavier Worthy. Their offensive line's back. I think Texas is going to run through the Big 12. I don't think they'll have much competition throughout the Big 12. But where we completely disagree is I do not have Oklahoma playing them. I don't. Give me Kansas State. I'm going K-State and Coach Chris Kleinman's. Will Howard coming back, prime for a breakout season after the end of last year. They also return all their offensive line. Their entire offensive line's back, and they got a Florida State transfer at running back that's going to go nuts behind that offensive line. Trayshawn Ward. They lost Deuce Vaughn. Trayshawn Ward steps right in behind that great offensive line. K-State has 2 hard games on the schedule, and they're 2 tough games. But other than that, they get all their big games at home. They got to go at Texas. They got to go at Oklahoma State. I think they lose 3 games. I think they find a loss somewhere else. I think that's enough to outseat Oklahoma, and I have K-State. And I got to give credit. My man John Suggs in the chat said, don't sleep on K-State. He was calling K-State when y'all first started talking about it. So I'm going with Kansas State and Texas.
By no means would I be surprised if Kansas State is there. I don't think there's I don't think Kansas State's going to be a bad team. Again, I said Oklahoma is going to be a 9-3 team. I fully expect, if K-State goes 9-3 or if they won 10-2, I wouldn't be surprised by that at all. I do think that other spot in the championship game is up for grabs. And, I will give my winner here. And then, of course, I know we're going to get into our dark horses a little bit. But championship winner, I got Texas as well. I mean, there's no doubt about it. Hook 'em horns. And I do think, this year you have Texas. Their toughest game of the year will be against Alabama, who I don't love their quarterback situation right now. So I saw how the game went last year. I'll say it now. I think Texas beats Alabama this year, and they're going into the Big 12 championship game undefeated with the chance to potentially seal up the ones. They won't be the 1 seed because Georgia's gonna roll, but probably to shore up the 2 seed in the college football playoff. And then as far as dark horses go, I think Cincinnati has a chance to join the conference first year and make it to the championship game. Obviously, they lost Fickle to Wisconsin, but they're bringing in Scott from Louisville, and they got Emory Jones, who was at first at Florida, and so he was a highly touted prospect, coming into college, and obviously things didn't work out at Florida. Lost his job to Anthony Richardson, but I think Cincinnati's a team that has that pedigree and consistency where if they go there and they're 9-3 or 8-3 towards the end of the season, I think they're going to be right there in the thick of it as well.
Adam, I want to comment, brother, real quick.
So do I.
They're not in the Big 12 yet. They're still in the Pac-12 this year. They're not moving, and I don't think they win 5 games. Nothing against Deion Sanders. Just got to give them time to build a program. They won 1 game last year. Even if they were in the Big 12 this year, I wouldn't pick them. But they're in the Pac-12 this year. They don't switch over until next year. And I'm not picking them to win the Big 12 this year, even this year. I don't think they win 5 games.
They're going to go through some growing pains this year. That
they got roster, some tough lineup, some tough games.
They got some tough games. They had mass exits of kids that left. And, granted, they're not all 5-star kids or anything. Don't get me wrong. But, I mean, just at a college program in general, you have to have depth. And they're thin and a lot of, it's going to be a rough first year for Deion. I'm not.
Adam, I'll give up my seat on the show. You can come sit in this seat on the show. They go 10-2 this year.
Whoa!
I will give up my seat on this show. I will give up. Is this Deion Sanders' nephew?
It might be Deion Sanders.
It might be. I will give up my seat on this show if they go 10-2. You can take my seat.
Well, I know they're for sure losing to USC. There's absolutely no doubt about that. Like that's a no doubt about it loss. I think they got what, TCU first game of the year? I get it.
TCU lost a lot.
TCU's
so don't
going
get
to
me
be
wrong,
down, but
yeah, I mean,
that's no walk in the park.
10-2 is just not happening.
I mean, we're going through the Pac-12 next week. We can talk about it then. But, I mean, just looking at Colorado's schedule, they got to play at TCU. They got a home game versus Nebraska, which I think they'll lose that game.
Matt Rule will win.
What'd you say?
Matt Rule will win that game.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. Nebraska. They'll probably beat Colorado State, which I don't disagree there. Then they got to go at Oregon. They're going to lose that game. They play USC. They're going to lose that game. Then they got to go at Arizona State. Do they win it? Do they lose it? I don't know.
They win that game.
They play Stanford at home. Then they go at Chip Kelly and UCLA. That's a loss.
That's
like
a loss.
I don't. They're going to lose 5. I can't. You can be a huge Deion fan all you want, bro. But you got to be a fan of reality too. 10-2 is not a reality.
Yeah, and I don't think anybody's questioning that he's going to turn that program around and get it back to where it was in the 90s. Like I firmly believe that. It's just not going to be this year, buddy.
Correct.
And I don't know if anybody could. That is a huge turnaround in both what he's going to recruit and culture. I mean, we've talked about it, at length on this show of, that takes a year or two to settle in. That's not an overnight type of thing. He's not going to, he didn't go to USC or Ohio State or Alabama or like a turnkey, where the cupboards are just stockpiled with 5-star kids. Like that's not what he did here. Like it's going to take him some time.
Joseph Jeffers hit it on the head. I do think they're going to be bowl eligible. I think they win whatever bowl game they get in. I think they might even get the cool bowl game like the Bahamas or some shit because Deion has that kind of a pool. But I 100% agree. 5 losses, maybe 6, still get that bowl eligibility, and that's how you recruit. And I do think they have the potential to be, in the mix next year in the Pac-12, but it's definitely not happening this year.
I gotta shout out some of John Suggs' comments. John Suggs has been on fire. He's on the Sports Empire page, so I can't post them on here, but I can read them. He said, "Who said Colorado beat TCU first game? TCU beats Colorado." He said, "I'll give you $10,000 if Colorado wins more than 6 games." And he said, "Nope,
that's crazy.
Deion will not make Colorado into a top program in the Pac-12 or the Big 12 because in 2 to 3 years he will transfer to Florida State." He said as soon as he gets the opportunity to transfer to Florida State, he's running out the door.
Well, it's going to be tough to go to Florida State because Florida State, we just talked about them last week. If they have the run that we think they potentially could have,
Mike Norvell's not going anywhere.
There won't be a opening.
And I don't know if Deion's going to want to go to Florida State if he's going to Colorado now, so I guess that ain't going to bother him that much. But they join possibly the Big Ten like you're talking about. It'll be another jump. But again, I think if Florida State plays up to their expectations, Mike Norvell's not going anywhere. I'm going to disagree with something else he said too. I don't think Alabama's dominant this year at all. I'll give you a spoiler alert. I don't think Alabama wins the SEC West this year.
Facts.
Alabama will not be a college football playoff team this year.
All right, we'll see. They play Texas and Tuscaloosa this year.
Yeah, I mean, that's a tough game for Texas.
Texas goes in there and they win. I'm saying it now on the record.
Wait for college football. Let's go.
I think the big game on Alabama's schedule, even if they win versus Texas week 2, the big game on their schedule is they got to go at Texas
College Station. Yep.
Jimbo.
They struggle there, man. They struggle there. Jimbo seems to have Nick's number in College Station. We'll see. All right. Well,
where do they play LSU this year? They home or
they
away?
play at home versus LSU.
That helps a little bit.
It does. I mean,
yeah, because they lost last year. They lost last year in Death Valley.
That's right.
You guys got any sleepers for the Big 12?
Not really. I don't have any like sleepers. I think Kansas State will edge out Oklahoma. I think TCU falls off a ton. I don't think Baylor is going to be good this year. I don't have any faith in Texas Tech. I think Kansas is going to be terrible.
Oklahoma State could be a sneaky one, I guess, because they get Spencer Sanders back, but I don't have high hopes.
See, outside of him, I think they lost too much. I agree with Gene. I think if anybody else seriously to factor in here, I think it would be Kansas State. TCU just lost too much offensively. I just don't know what they look like. I mean, but
they lost 3/5 of their offensive line. They lost their starting wide receiver, their starting cornerback, their starting running back, their starting quarterback.
Yep.
And starting receiver.
Yeah.
It's a lot. It's too much. I mean, we'll see. I mean, we'll see what they look like against Colorado. But I mean, I will tell you this: if they somehow stomp Colorado, Colorado's going to have a long year. It's a long year. Is that game truly home, or is that like a neutral site? And
I think it's neutral.
Team?
I'll check because it sounds like it'll be a fun neutral site game.
I think it is a neutral.
I'll check for you guys.
All right.
It says at TCU, but let me see if it's where are they playing? Here we go. Where are they playing? Being played at Amron Carter Stadium in Fort Worth, Texas. I think that's the home of the Horned Frogs. Am I correct?
No, they don't play. No.
They're playing in Fort Worth, Texas, in Amon Carter Stadium.
Is that? I'm wondering if that's the new baseball stadium.
I don't think that's TCU Stadium because they're in. No, it is TCU Stadium. It is.
Is it?
So it's in TCU.
Oh yeah, Amon G. Carter. Oh yeah. So Colorado's losing that game.
All right, gentlemen, we got some World Cup action to get into.
I didn't know we were talking about grass ping pong tonight.
I didn't know it either, but Cottrell put it on the graphic, and the United States
got to get the people updated, man.
And the United States has looked stellar in this World Cup so far. Didn't score a goal. Probably should have got sent home the other day. The crossbar or the left post saved them. It's embarrassing. The team's taking selfies. Give me Sweden. I don't care. Grass ping pong. The United States Olympic women's soccer team looks awful. They look terrible. And after the game, after they almost got eliminated, they're celebrating and they're taking selfies and smiling and oh man, they look terrible.
They do. And I mean, I don't think there's any doubt about that. I mean, it is not when the expectation is getting a World Cup title, but there is an accomplishment of making it out of the group stage. But again, not when you have that expectation set already. Biggest thing for them is, I was saying it earlier. I think they need to have their manager not be as stubborn and go back to what they know, the true 4-4-2, and have the offense and have the defense ready to roll. I mean, clearly the women out there look very uncomfortable in that 4-3-3, and it just hasn't been working well. So I'm hoping they make the adjustment against Sweden, because if they don't, Sweden is going to slice the defense up right through the middle, and they're going to send us home 3-1.
I don't disagree. I mean, I said it that first night we were watching. The 4-4-3 is not working. You essentially at that point have Julie Ertz out of position, which just makes no sense. She's one of our best damn players. You got to go back to 4-4-2, go offensive mid, put Julie behind her, and then stop playing Alex Morgan. We're not even playing a 4-3-3 either, which is the worst thing. We're kind of playing like a 4-3-2-1, which is just dumb. We just have Alex Morgan on this island by herself. But what it's allowing these teams to do, it's allowing these teams to mark her more easily because she's not making runs out of the midfield or making runs off the wing. I'll tell you what, the coach has a couple days to stop being stubborn because if they get bounced by Sweden, he's getting fired. He won't get back on the plane. So they'll leave his ass in New Zealand and tell him to swim home. So they've looked terrible. I don't know what's going on behind the scenes. But Gene hit a live on the head too. This team is too talented to be celebrating draws against bad teams. And if that ball does go in, instead of bouncing down, it goes in off the post. They're probably going home. So it's they got a gut check time. I think he made bad roster decisions. He got forced in, and Megan Rapinoe shoved down his throat. She shouldn't be on the squad. She's done. And I'm not taking anything away from what she's done for the team or what she was in her prime. She's a wasted roster spot on this team. She's not capable of playing more than 20 minutes right now, and she's not contributing anything. And especially in a 4-3-3, it's not the way. You're not gonna get the most out of her that way. So he made a couple questionable roster decisions, and he's paying for them now. And your best player front is Alex Morgan, and you're putting in her a spot where she can't be productive. It just makes zero sense to me.
The other thing.
Hold on.
Go ahead, Bill.
Well, let me go. Carly Lloyd's comments were so good. I love them. I'm going to highlight them. What?
They were spot on. Everybody's getting all up in arms. She's
I have never witnessed something like that. I have never witnessed something like that. There's a difference between being respectful of the fans and saying hello to your family, but to be dancing, to be smiling. I mean, the player of the match was the post. You're lucky not to be going home right now.
100% right.
She was 100% right. And like I said, the only bad thing I got to say about Carly Lloyd is, she got called out for it and she kind of walked it back. As a woman who had been on that team before, knows what it takes to win a World Cup and things like that, I think she is more than capable of being the person to say that. And she's 100% right about it. That's nothing that, you celebrate. You didn't put on a great performance against a team that you probably should have beat, by at least 3 goals. So
she walked it back after being questioned for it and doubling down on it. Because what she said, when she was asked about it yesterday, she walked it back later on that day. But she said it's no longer we want to win because we want to win. No, we want everything that comes with winning. We think we can just roll out and win games. And that's not the case. And teams see that. They see the arrogance in the United States and see that they're not this unstoppable team. They see that they're able to be broken down and beaten. I am always going to care.
You want the unpopular opinion that nobody's going to say it on national TV because they'll catch shit for it and get fired. This team's soft. This team is extremely soft. This team was coddled. A lot of what Carly Lloyd just said right there is 100% right. This team got too caught up on off the field crap during this cycle. And some of it was very important. Some of it was had to change. And I don't fault them for getting caught up in those causes, but it took away from their preparation. It took away from them being mentally prepared for this. And the other part of it is Carly Lloyd's exactly right. The world has slowly been catching up to the U.S. in soccer for women's. The rest of the world's trying to do what our men's team is trying to do and catch up to the powers. The gap's closing. You're seeing it. You're seeing it year after year. Like every year, even with the Olympics or the World Cup cycle, for us to winning, it's getting a little bit harder and harder. But they're soft. They're soft. They're not ready to play this. I'm telling you right now, in my heart, I want them to win. I don't want them to go through any BS or anything. I'm telling you right now, I will not be shocked if Sweden beats the balls off them in a couple days.
Facts.
And I mean embarrassingly bad. 4-1, 5-1, something like that. It's going to be embarrassing.
One could only hope. I'm actually rooting for it.
And then they're in a lot of trouble because, for the next World Cup cycle, Julie Ertz is going to be gone. Alex Morgan is going to be gone. They're going to cycle out. They're going to cycle out a bunch of all-time great players for this country.
I'm rooting for it. I'm going to tell you why I'm rooting for it, because listen, and I'm not going to get into the equal pay discussion. I won't get into that. And I understand the concept of that and what we want, what we need, and the activism that's being fought for. I get that. But every time the World Cup comes around, it's almost like they treat that like it's their stage to talk about why they should be getting paid more. And honestly, I'd rather hear that after you win a World Cup. I'd rather hear that the month after you win a World Cup, this is why we deserve to get paid more, not going into a World Cup. And I'll tell you right now, that American soccer team looks like they are arrogant and they look soft. And I don't really care what anybody thinks of what my opinion is, because I don't like grass ping pong. But I watch the American soccer team because they always win, and I cannot wait to watch them fall flat on their face. Go Sweden.
I mean, the big thing about it to me is I think you're in a position where, a few years ago when things got tough, you were like, hey, we're going to put the ball on Rapinoe's foot, and she's going to go out there and get us a goal. The position that you have Alex Morgan in a position right now, with her being on the outside, she really doesn't have an opportunity to be aggressive. If she gets too aggressive in the middle, then that opens up things on the counter side on the outside. So I think Alex Morgan is really in a position right now where she's not set up to be successful. You see her trying to, get her teammates involved and things like that. But when you don't have the threat of Alex Morgan scoring, it's great that she can set up other people, but you don't have that threat of her scoring, and her being the most experienced person on this team that's actually getting playing time. You don't have her in the thick of it. To me, it just doesn't make sense. So I think that's why you ultimately have to go back to that 4-4-2, keep Alex up front, and then you let her attack. And then that way, if things get tough and you need a goal or things like that, she can go out there and go get it without getting out of position. So hopefully they make that switch, because that's been the biggest disappointing thing to me is Alex Morgan's really just been a shell of herself because she's not in a position to succeed.
No, they have her as almost like a stationary forward right now and serving the balls into her, and that's not what she's best at. You have to get Alex Morgan the ball in space and let her run at people, let her create plays. You let her go one-on-one the defenders, and if she beats them, let her shoot. If not, she can set up other people off the run. You just can't. She can't be a target. She's not a target forward. She's never been a target forward. I just don't know why this guy is insisting on playing her this way. And then on top of that, dude, Rose Lavelle has to start tomorrow night or 2 days.
Isn't she suspended?
No,
I thought she was suspended.
That is what Joseph Jeffers said, that she is suspended.
She's suspended.
She must have got
she got 2 yellows. That is a sub. That's wonderful. I mean, that's going to hurt. I mean, because she's the ideal person to put in front of Julie in a 4-4-2 and let her link up with the forwards. But I don't know what they're going to do, man. I don't know. Again, I hope they win. I don't ever want to see them lose. I don't want to root against them. But I just have a bad feeling about tomorrow, or about 2 days from now.
And that's the other thing, too.
I will.
Bill, you said it earlier, and I just want to echo it. Julie Ertz playing out of position makes absolutely no sense. You got her stuck on the defensive side of the ball, and she's, the middle of the defense has been absolute, hot knife through butter. Anybody can attack the middle of our defense. They get through, they get great looks. It's been a terrible thing to watch. So hopefully they make that adjustment. Maybe they were saving it to not get things out there on film, and they're saving it for Sweden. But I'm just being a overly optimistic U.S. fan, I guess.
When she plays her natural position and she plays defensive center mid, she's the best defensive center mid on the planet. And I just don't know why you would move her and just take that. I don't get it, dude. This guy is just not. He's just not ready for this job. I think if he was the coach 4 years ago when they still had Carly Lloyd and Rapinoe was still kind of in her prime, and it was a more of an established team. You still had Allie Krieger and all those girls. I think that was more manageable. To bring this guy in and give him this job, and for lack of a better term, in mid-cycle where you had to make tough decisions and bring on young women that maybe aren't ready, or and like I said, Megan Rapinoe got shoved down his throat. I mean, she just did. It's leading to what might be a disaster, and you might see that in a couple nights, unfortunately, and it's going to be sad. But maybe it's the wake up call they need.
All righty. Let's move on to You Gotta Be Kidding Me. Cottrell, I have so many in the chamber. I'm hoping that you guys use a couple of them because I don't want to have to go through 3 or 4.
Yeah, so let me get the exact number because more of it came out today.
Oh, God damn it. You're going to steal mine. I know it. I know it's
what well, steal the one we talked about last night, Bill. I have plenty.
All right.
So it came out recently that Iowa State quarterback Hunter Decker was making bets, on sports, specifically football, with his school. And there was actually a video that actually just came out of him placing a bet. And he's in the video saying, "Don't post this, though. It's illegal." So you knew it was an illegal thing to do and, just not the right thing to do it. And he got caught doing it on video. I don't know how much more of an idiot you can be to have someone be there with you, video it, and then tell them not to post it because it's illegal. Like, that is just quite literally the dumbest thing you could ever possibly do. It did come out today that there's more Iowa State Hawkeyes that are, in hot water for the same thing. I think it's up to 8 players that they are investigating at this point.
12.
So even more. So now they're up to 12. I think that's the kind of thing that gets you on you're going to have postseason bans for multiple years. And that's the kind of thing ultimately that can get a coach fired. We talk on the show all the time throughout the past couple of years about how much we like Matt Campbell and we like what they do there at Iowa State. But that's the kind of thing that can get you out of a job, as fast as possible. So not saying it's his fault necessarily, but I'm just saying that puts the spotlight on you and you're in control of those college kids. So this week for me, Iowa State just having dumb decision after dumb decision. You get 12 of your guys roped into this, spearheaded by this quarterback that was caught on video making an illegal bet.
Come on, you gotta be kidding me.
Yeah, it's up to 12 players now. Now the rumor is that they think it actually spread into the basketball program as well. If you're Matt Campbell, obviously this isn't your fault at all. I agree with you. You got sanctions out the wazoo coming to this program right now. Him getting fired is probably the best thing that could happen to him. He's going to get another job somewhere. This week, I was going to do Hunter Deckers, but, Cottrell's not allowed to go first anymore. Either that or we got to confer with what these things are. I'll go with this one, though. I did talk to Gene about it last night. I'm going to go with Jim Irsay, the Colts. The blubbering, blabbering, incoherent rants that he went on in his little golf cart the other day. You pretty much just alienated the best player, your franchise player that you had, other than Quentin Nelson and Shaquille Leonard. But I think it made no sense to me. A, you didn't have to say anything publicly at all, so let's start there. But then B, for you to take the public stance to go against your star running back was just it was incredibly stupid. And then you acted surprised when the next day Jonathan Taylor and his camp are like, you know what, trade us, get us the hell out of here. We don't want to be here anymore. These owners that try to be too involved in their teams got to stop. Jim Irsay has a long track record of saying the wrong thing at the wrong time. This is not the first time this has happened. If you're Chris Ballard, the GM, I would have resigned yesterday already. You look at the guys this guy is drafted and brought in here and moves he's made, some of which have been directly submarined by things that Jim Irsay have said. He's wrecked a team that Chris Ballard's put together. This is just another long line of embarrassing black eyes for the Indianapolis Colts. Irsay's had his own, fair share of personal problems off the field as well. You can just tack this onto the list. I don't think Jonathan Taylor plays for the Colts this year. I really don't. Trade market out there is probably not the best for him right now. But all the guy wanted was to feel loved and feel valued by the organization that drafted him. And Jim Irsay blew that up in about a 3-minute soundbite. So for me this week, Jim Irsay screwing over your own team again.
Come on, you gotta be kidding me.
There's a lot I can go with this week. There's a couple UFC ones, boxing one. Something happened this morning that just made me smile, and I had to put it on highlight. We didn't talk about it at all. Let me ask you guys a question real quick. When was the last time you seen Patrick Mahomes getting screamed at by a corner calling him a punk. It's the last time you seen Joe Burrow getting screamed at by safety or a lineman telling me he's soft.
I had a feeling that's where this was going.
You're referring to one of his teammates too, by the way.
Yes. I'm getting there. How about Jalen Hurts? Guys love him. Guys absolutely love him. Let's move on to Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott went public in the media. First of all, when you have a bad season, I'm going to help you guys. Hear me, athletes. Listen with your ears. When you have a bad season, I don't need you in the media telling me you're not going to have another bad season. When you throw a ton of interceptions, I don't need you in the media saying, I'm not going to throw this many interceptions again. Because every time you do in practice, it's going to get highlighted. Dak Prescott underthrew one of his receivers by about 15 yards that got picked off. Had a really rough day at practice, threw 2 picks and 7-on-7. And then Trayvon Diggs, star cornerback for the Dallas Cowboys, just looking for a payday. Didn't he just get paid?
You got it.
He just got paid.
Just got paid. Just got a contract. He was feeling a little froggy. Gets right in Dak Prescott's face and calls him a bitch. Use a bitch to Dak Prescott. What?
Punk ass bitch.
I am so listen. Amari Cooper's comments out the door. Trevon Diggs' comments. It just keeps adding on and adding on and adding on. And to think people have Dak Prescott as a top 10 quarterback in this league is alarming to me. I don't know what you're watching. I don't feel like it's a homie thing, franchise. I don't feel like it's a homie thing. He called him a punk ass bitch, and then Dak threw a football at him.
He threw him a punk ass bitch in the corner of like the end zone where he knew cameras were. Like that wasn't like something to be funny, like between teammates where like nobody was going to hear it. Like he knew everybody that was there was going to pick that up on like a microphone. I don't think it's a homie thing at all. Dak's reaction to it, I think he was taken back, and then he just kind of like chucked the football at him as he was running away. He didn't really throw that with any conviction either, just like he did on that fly pattern. But he is what he is, man. Dallas Cowboys are the most delusional fans in the world. He is the weak link on your team. I'm sure we'll get into it, as we get into, NFL previews and everything. But the man is what he is, and he is a mediocre quarterback.
At best.
Believe me. Don't believe me. Deny it. Don't want to see it. Whatever you want to do. It's just a fact.
See, Manny, you saying I don't think Trevon meant that. It makes me really believe that you didn't follow the training camp. It was a super intense practice. See, this is what I mean. You didn't follow it, and that's okay. If you didn't follow it, I want you to follow it. They had a super intense practice. It was 7-on-7 drills, and you're not supposed to roll out in 7-on-7 outside the tackle box. Dak Prescott eluded a rusher, rolled out of the pocket, and then threw the ball. And Trevon Diggs, and I want to give the right quote because we're saying the quote wrong. He said, "Shut your bitch ass up" in a tense training camp exchange. That's the exact quote. There's no joking about that. And for this week, the Dallas Cowboys, Dakota Rain Prescott, and Trevon Diggs.
Come on, you gotta be kidding me.
What was he, the white Kirk Cousins? What was he, black Kirk Cousins from Amari Cooper? That was Amari Cooper's comments.
I'll take Kirk Cousins over Dak all day.
I'll take Jared Goff over him.
That wasn't an option.
I'll take Jared Goff over Dak.
That'd be like me being like, "Oh, I'll take Joe Burrow over Dak." Like, no shit.
I don't think that's the same thing.
That's not the same thing. No,
I'm not. All I'm saying is that wasn't part of the conversation. That's all I'm saying.
All right, gentlemen. 9:04. We're a little late. We got another show behind us. But I do want to thank everyone for tuning in. The likes, the shares, the comments, YouTube, Twitch, Facebook. Appreciate y'all. We will have our episode up live on Spotify, Apple Podcast, iHeartRadio before the night is over. I'm determined. No, I'm just kidding. I'm going to upload it right after the show's done. Any final comments from you two gentlemen? Because I have one.
I got two. Well, first of all, Nate Diaz versus Jake Paul. Who you guys got?
Jake Paul's gonna kill him.
I hope so.
A boxing match, yeah. I think
it's not even gonna be close.
Yeah, Nate might get DQ'd from like trying to slap or throw a kick or something. But I got Jake Paul.
Don't tune out yet, boys. Don't. I got one final word. Okay.
But I got Cotrella appreciate this. I'm sure he saw it. Got to give props to Katie Ledecky as we're going out here. She won another national gold medal. She now has more than Michael Phelps does. She's a machine, and she's still young. So just got to give her props for winning another medal at nationals. Super impressive career. And I'm a little disappointed we didn't get into SummerSlam. I
can't wait, but we're not going to talk about that on the show. I can't wait.
Finn Balor's going to beat Seth Rollins. There's your
But I have two special comments. Is anybody else? Control, you have one?
I'm empty.
I made this mistake earlier in the year when I didn't do the preview. I'm going to do the preview now. My man, Shally, has a birthday coming up before our next show. So I want to wish a very happy birthday to Scholastic Shally. He's turning 54 in a couple days.
It's messed up.
Any status? I'm just kidding. Happy birthday, Shally. But you're not even my favorite birthday.
I know. It's messed
Shally,
up.
when's your birthday?
Saturday.
We're in that in-between territory. I guess I'll tell you happy birthday now. I was thinking if I was going to wait until next show and just, spring it on you. But we're here, happy birthday. Hope you enjoy it. You get the luxury of it being on a weekend day. You get to go do something fun. So
Gene will be celebrating with me.
I will be. Taking a day off of work for that. You didn't hear that. Happy birthday, Shally.
I'm telling.
Thank you. I'm selling.
I gotta give one more. He's not even my favorite birthday this weekend. I gotta wish a special shout out to Gloria Walzak. She's turning 60 years old. The big 6-0 on Friday. Happy birthday, Mom. My mom is one of the strongest, toughest people you'll ever meet in your entire life. She still goes to boot camp 5 days a week. In phenomenal shape. You seen a picture of her, you wouldn't believe that she's 60. So I just want to wish a special shout out to my mom, Mama Walzak, Gloria Walzak. Happy birthday, the big 6-0.
Thank you, Audia. Thank you, Joseph Jeffers, Kyle Edwards. I appreciate it. I was really going to say, if it's not your mom, I'm going to be pissed if somebody else got the last shout out. But since it's your mom.
And it's the big 60. If it was 59, you would have got the last shout out.
Yeah.
But it's 60. I got to give a big 60 to my mom.
Bill, make sure you remember that next year when this show rolls around.
I know.
61 is going to be Shally,
Just going to sit at the top of my notes for all the shows.
Oh, man.
But happy birthday, Mama Walzak. I hope you have a great day.
Absolutely. Echoing the same sentiments. Yeah. Do you have a fun weekend? Sounds like both of you.
Oh, it would be a great weekend. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I got a lot of stuff loaded. But I want to thank you guys for tuning in this week. Thank you guys for listening. Please give us a download on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, or wherever you listen to podcasts. I'm Wire to Wire Gene, the NFL genius. That's College Kittrell, Scholastic Shally. And this is Wire to Wire. And we are signing out.